Hey there, welcome in to another edition of the Stingers Up, Sacramento State football podcast. I'm your host, Jason Ross. Thank you so much for checking us out. I got to tell you, thank you. I continue to get more great feedback from you guys out there. The numbers are growing. Hornet fans are growing, much like you've seen the attendance at the games here. If you've gone to the games, listened on the radio, or watched them on television, there's a lot of people paying attention to this program, and it's a lot of fun. Credit to the coaching staff, the players, the university for making this kind of must-follow football. And we're going to do that in our podcast here today. We've got to recap another thrilling game, an impressive win over Idaho. We're going to have special guests today, including my broadcast partner on the radio, longtime analyst, friend of mine, Steve McElroy, is going to join us. We'll get his perspective on what this last couple of years and specifically this year is like. Killian Rosko, it's been a long-time Hornet, member of that defensive line. We're going to check in with him, and we got to look ahead again to another big showdown this weekend as Sacramento State plays another top 10 team. It's going to be number 5 Weber, number 2 Sacramento State, in just another classic coming up in Ogden, Utah this weekend. So lots for us to get to. I'm going to start quickly with a brief story about Saturday's game. For any of you that didn't hear the game on the radio, I'm assuming so many of you went to the game, which was awesome to see. It was a little bit different than the Montana game, similar in the sense that the Hornets were the team with the lead and watched Idaho come back. But what was different is that the Sacramento State Hornets responded on the final drive. And what I wanted to get to on that part is, as a broadcaster, you really just want to worry about calling the game. Hopefully you got all your information, you're working well with your team, and you just hopefully call a good game. Never going to be perfect. You're always kind of chasing that. And the last thing you want to worry about is your equipment, as far as the broadcast equipment. So, the Hornets had just given up the touchdown to Idaho, and they're on a drive hoping to win the game. And it's roughly in the last 2 minutes, and the Hornets are now inside the 10-yard line. Idaho's starting to use timeouts, and Steve and I and Danny, when we're on the call, we could hear the equipment start to make, not the equipment, but through our headset, a little crackle, and just it didn't sound right. Kind of similar to static, but it didn't sound right. And another Danny Pinto, back at our studios, was telling us, hey, guys, this is not sounding good in our ears. He was telling us that, so he thought we should reconnect the equipment. And I'm thinking at this time, and I look at Steve briefly, like, we can't reconnect during what could be a potential game-winning drive. And sure enough, shortly after that, the next thing we know, some red lights come on our equipment, and it just goes out. Completely out, while the Hornets have the ball inside the 10-yard line, potentially going to win the game. So quick work by Steve, quick work by Danny Pinto back at the studio, and Danny Pinto called Steve's cell phone. Steve hands me the phone while Steve's trying to get equipment rebooted and figured out. We thought we fried the machine, so I'm thinking the rest of the game's not going to be on the air. I was going to continue to do the game into a handheld recorder that we have there, but it's all through our equipment, so nothing was working. So the resourcefulness that we came up with is I started to call the game on the cell phone that Steve had handed to me. Danny Pinto on his end at the studio held it up on a speakerphone to the microphone, and that basically was going over the air. It didn't sound great, but it was on the air. All the while, Steve's working on trying to reboot, and after maybe one play and another timeout, I put the phone on my ear, but inside the headsets, if you can imagine that. So I had it trapped. And then so my hands were free, and then I could hear in my ear all of a sudden the same thing I was saying into the phone, so I knew we were suddenly connected. You're going to hear it coming up in the recap. It was literally a half second or maybe even in the play call of the Asher O'Hara touchdown. Certainly a memory that I'll have. I don't want to go through again if we don't have to, but it made it all the better that the Hornets won the game. So with all that said, I hope you enjoyed the brief story, a little hectic nature on our part. I'm going to ask Steve about that coming up. But let's recap what happened last Saturday. It started early with the Hornets, again, playing a very good Idaho team. Was impressed by them. I could tell Coach Taylor was impressed by them before the game even started. And then now that I've seen them play, that's a good football team. This is a quality win for Sacramento State to stay perfect. But the Hornets started with the ball. They went down the field, looked good on the first drive, and it would end with a touchdown.
On this 2nd down and 6 from the pistol. Dunaway. He'll keep it. He'll throw over the middle. Quick slant is caught by Miller. Miller's to the 10. He's to the 5. He's in the end zone. Touchdown, Sacramento State. A 31-yard throw and catch over the middle to Miller. He is in the end zone.
Following that, the Hornets would watch Idaho go down the field. They would try a field goal from 40, and they have a very good kicker in Ricardo Chavez, but he would miss, and so Sacramento State still led 7-0. The Hornets drove again, got inside Idaho's other side of the 50, but went for a 4th down and 10 at the 42-yard line. Couldn't convert that, so a turnover on downs. Then Idaho tried the same thing. Their next possession, they had a 4th and 2 at the Hornets' 31 after missing their field goal. They turned it over on downs. So we had kind of aggressive coaches here, which I appreciate. And after one quarter, it was 7-0. Let's take you to the second quarter. And the Hornets, from that possession, moved downfield, got into range, and Kyle Sinkowski booted it through from 26 yards out as Sacramento State led 10-0. From that point, Idaho would finally get on the board. Elisha Cummings would catch a touchdown pass, 16 yards. Actually, it was a rush up the middle, 16 yards for the score. 10-7. Sacramento State still feeling pretty good, but trying to add to their lead if they could before halftime. And the Hornets would do just that on a well-crafted drive. Took some time, got down the field, and capped it off thanks to Marcus Fulcher.
Here we go, Hornets after the timeout. Here's a delay give to Fulcher. Fulcher bounces outside, turns inside, falls close to the goal line, no signal. He's in! Touchdown, Sacramento State. He stretched for the goal line, and the line judge right down there by Danny says he's in. Count it, touchdown Hornets. Marcus Fulcher slithers through for a score.
So 17-7, Sacramento State with the lead at the break. We go to the third quarter, which Idaho started with the football, but the Hornets would force them into a situation where they got another 4th down, 4th and 9. They would go for it, but an incomplete pass broken up by Caleb Nelson put the Hornet offense back out on the field with a 10-point lead. This is where they're lethal. The usual DNA for the Hornets. If you watch this football team, they want to run the ball, they want to get ahead, mix in the pass, rely on good special teams, defense, and a good ground game, and then just get ahead of you and basically choke you out if they can. Well, the Hornets were starting to do that. Up 17-7, get the ball back, they do a drive, and they get near the goal line. This is where Asher O'Hara is so dangerous as a runner, but the Hornets would switch it up, and Asher would throw it.
Pierre Williams goes in motion. O'Hara. He will roll to his right, looks back over the middle, throws back over the middle into traffic. It's caught! Pierre Williams in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. Asher O'Hara to Pierre Williams, back of the end zone, good from 8 yards out, and the Hornets lead 23-7.
So now it's 24-7, Sacramento State. They've outplayed Idaho at this point, looked good. Idaho's the number one time of possession team in the nation, so you figured it would take them some time to get into scoring range, and that's what they would do. They would take their sweet time, but they would go down the field and score and make it 24-14. You're still feeling pretty good, though, if you're the Hornets, as they would get it into the fourth quarter. So up 24-14 into the fourth quarter. You're playing at home in front of a huge crowd. In fact, fourth largest crowd ever at Hornet Stadium, largest non-Causeway crowd. And after the first play of the fourth quarter in which Idaho punted, the Hornets had the ball at their own 37-yard line. So you're thinking maybe you run a couple plays, who knows? But that's where Troy Taylor can trick you, can deceive you. And they tried a deep shot down the sideline and an incredible interception. A one-handed interception by Marcus Harris on the Hornets sideline kind of started to flip the game. So a turnover there, still up 10, but Idaho would go to work. They would score, make it 24-21. All right, now it's a little bit nerve-wracking at Hornet Stadium. About 8.5 minutes to go. And now another possession for the Hornets. First and 10 at their own 25, and then a tipped pass that went right into the hands of Paumaola of the Vandals, and he returned it with a nice return. And there was a personal foul at the end of the play, but still, Idaho was in great position now to all of a sudden take their first lead of the game, and they would do just that.
Full house backfield. McCoy's going to throw. Looks for the quick slant. Instead, he goes for the big ball to the end zone. It's caught. Touchdown, Vandals. They've got the lead. It's Hayden Hatton one more time. Fade to the corner, and the comeback has been complete by the Idaho Vandals. They now take the lead at 27-24.
So Hayden Hatton would score for the third time. He had an unbelievable game, and now all of a sudden, Sacramento State was down 28-24 with 6.5 minutes to go. And here's where one of the most impressive drives I've seen of this team in a long time happened. Now, they've got so many over the last couple of years, but the Hornets really went to the ground. They had thrown two passes, had bad breaks, had an incredible interception, a bad break on the other one, but it only had to run two plays, and now we're down in the fourth quarter. had their timeouts, had 6:26 to go, started with it at their 25-yard line, and I'm just going to read the play-by-play sheet here, and this is how it went. Asher O'Hara, run right, 26 yards. Asher O'Hara, run up the middle, 9 yards. Asher O'Hara, this is the only one the Hornets attempted a pass. He was sacked for a loss of 5. So now you're 3rd and 6 at Idaho's 45. Cameron Scadaboo runs right for 10 yards. Hornet first down. Then Cameron Scadaboo up the middle, 5 yards. This is down to Idaho's 30. Another Cameron Scadaboo run up the middle for 3 yards. You're just breaking their spirit here. 3rd and 2, critical play. Well, the Hornets, Asher O'Hara run up the middle, 8 yards. Incredible blocking by the O-line. Now they've got it down to the 19-yard line. Asher O'Hara run up the middle, 2-yard loss, so 2nd and 12. Then they go to Marcus Fulcher, a run for 8. Now it's a big 3rd and 4. It's Asher O'Hara again, down 5 yards to the 8-yard line, 1st and goal, timeout Idaho. Story from earlier, this is when I believe the equipment's starting to go out, if not out completely. So what you might have missed on the radio was Cameron Scadaboo's run up the middle 6 yards to the 2-yard line. 2nd and goal from the 2, timeout Idaho. Then Cameron Scadaboo, no yards, timeout Idaho. So now it's 3rd and goal, and we'll pick it up just like the equipment. You'll hear it starting on the phone, then over the air. Wow, Hornets complete their version of the comeback.
Sacramento State, for the 2nd straight week, to try to come back. They didn't have to do it as dramatically as last week. I think we might be reconnected here.
Here we go, the Hornets on a 3rd and goal. Asher O'Hara will send Tao Tolliver in motion. O'Hara will keep it. O'Hara runs left. He goes airborne! He is in! He is into the end zone! Touchdown! Sacramento State with 1:48 to go.
All right, Hornets score. They get the extra point. They lead 31-28, but still 1:48 to go with a good kicker. And now it would be on the hands, on the defensive side, to try to preserve yet another win.
So here we go. 2nd straight week that the defense can try to preserve a win. 31-28 Hornets. It's 4th down and 11 for the visiting Vandals. Both teams are perfect in the Big Sky. Can the Hornet defense step up again and get them to 8-0 on 4th and 11? McCoy changing the play at the line of scrimmage. He has 3 receivers left, 1 to the right. They need to get to the Hornet 47-yard line. McCoy back to pass. Pressure coming, and they're going to sack him. Ball is loose. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. The Hornets recover. That'll be the ball game, and Sacramento State is going to go to 8-0.
So leaving just over a minute to go, it was just a formality, and all that had to happen now was the Hornets to take a knee and to win the game.
The Hornets were looking good, kind of cruising up 24-7. Credit to the Vandals for taking a 28-24 lead, but the final knee is taken, and the Hornets' dream season continues. They stay perfect. They beat the upstart Idaho Vandals 31-28 in another classic football game.
Guys down here with head coach Troy Taylor. What a battle today against this Idaho team.
Yeah, they're an unbelievably well-coached team. That's a really good coach, Jason Eck and his staff, and admire that team. I knew coming in how good they were, and I have even more respect for them now. We're very fortunate to get a win.
It seemed like there was a bit of runs in this game.
Yeah.
We had the lead coming into the fourth, couple of plays in the fourth quarter, and then, the Vandals do what they do. They came back, and they made this tough, but when the team needed to, they came through with that big drive here in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, our guys are resilient, I know we gave up some drives, but at the end of the day, our defense comes up with a big stop. Our offense comes up with a huge drive. I'm just proud of our guys. They never quit. They always kind of find a way, and they always believe that they're going to find a way.
That's one thing we have to say about this team. They never give up. The guys upstairs and the people will ask, how does this team just continue? I say they never give up, and that's what you have to love about this team.
Yeah, they believe, and they work really hard. There's a lot of hard work that allows them to believe. But they believe in each other. They believe in their staff and our staff. And, like I said, they just continue to play. They always think they're going to find a way, and that's a big deal.
Congratulations, Coach, on the win.
Thank you. Stingers up.
So the Hornets win another 100-yard rushing day by Cameron Scadaboo, 129 for Asher O'Hara. Defense comes up big when they need it. And whew, collect your breath. What a day for Sacramento State. They go to 8-0, first time they've ever done that. Won the last 8 games of the regular season last year, the first 8 this year. It's 16 in a row in the regular season. They've been incredible in the Big Sky and still perfect in conference play, knocking off Idaho. So a great win, setting up a big game this week. And let's bring in my broadcast partner, Steve McElroy. All right, as I mentioned, the podcast rolling along, and the guy I get to work with every week. It's a privilege. Steve McElroy, analyst for Sacramento State football on the radio, does Sacramento State basketball. One heck of a golfer, friend of mine, now joining the show. Steve, how are you?
Well, Jason, it's kind of weird to be talking to you on the phone in a formal situation like this, but
let's make it informal.
We'll try and keep it professional.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, I wanted to get your perspective. I had told this story to begin the podcast, looking at last week's game. Great game, great win. But you and I and Danny and everyone involved in the broadcast experienced something that we never want to go through again. But I want to get your version of, let's say, I don't know, the final 2 minutes of the game, but really talking more about our equipment. What happened?
Well, we have a new set of equipment that Sac State provided, which is what I would have purchased myself. I've always supplied the equipment. Nothing wrong with that. But the light started igniting on the board, and then it started crackling and making fizzing sounds, and it sounded like it was going to smoke or explode. And then we found out that the station wasn't hearing us properly. And so I thought that this expensive new equipment was going to fry, so I had to unplug it. Danny Pinto was smart enough from the studio to call my cell phone, and so I handed you the phone because in the old days we could go on the broadcast over the phone line. But because the game was at hand and we needed to get on right away because the Hornets were driving for the winning touchdown, Danny had you talking on my phone on speakerphone into his phone in the studio, which he held up to the studio mic because we didn't want to waste the time hanging up and calling in on a hard line in the studio. Meanwhile, I have no engineering skills other than I've done it for 25 years. I unplugged literally everything to the machine, unplugged it from the wall, and started it all over. And fortunately, it came on just in time for the winning touchdown to transfer back to a good-sounding broadcast.
Yeah, it was literally in the call. Like, I played the clip. You can hear, the distorted, muffled, what we could do to get on the air. Then it just transitions to basically, here goes O'Hara, left side. I mean, the timing was incredible. And just the odd part, I think, for you, for me, for everyone, was it wasn't in pregame. It wasn't in the halftime, first quarter. It's on the winning drive of a historic season.
Yes. And Jason, you know how weird analogies always come in my head. It was as if, and you handled it beautifully as well, it was as if we did a tandem parachute jump and our parachute didn't open, and you looked at me like you were panicked because you want to be on the air to call this winning play. And I say, use a T-shirt as a parachute until I can figure out how to get the parachute open. You did a great job. And you kept, the great thing about Jason is you were completely off air, but you kept announcing the game to nothing as if you were still on.
Well, that's what kind of went to my head. As you know, I record the game as well on like a little recording device there. And I thought, well, at least I want to do the game if we need to play it later for the podcast, at least to have the call. But then I realized literally nothing that was all through our equipment. So this was literally talking to nobody. It wasn't that long. You did an amazing job of being resourceful to get it back on. Danny back at the studio. It was amazing. And a moment hopefully will never happen. These are the kind of stories that you and I have done this for 25 years that we do have. But at least it all worked out in the end. It's just a memorable night.
Yeah, and the amazing thing about it is some news person, I don't Twitter or any of those things, but news people and some other people said that we had a great call, which was really your call because I was still working with the equipment, so you get 100% credit. But they tweeted that we had this great call, and it was it was amazing, and they didn't realize what was going on behind the scenes. It was as if we performed a concert and we played the song in the wrong key, but the audience went, "Oh, that was the greatest."
Well, you and I talk about the team all the time, whether we're basically neighbors. We see each other all the time on the phone, whatever. But when other people reach out to you that, maybe are casual fans of the Hornets or just kind of know what you do and say, Steve, man, what's going on with the Hornets this year? What is your explanation of what Troy Taylor, this coaching staff, has done in 2019, 2021, and now this year? What do you say to people like that?
Well, first of all, it starts with people that I coached their kids in youth soccer 15 years ago are finding that they still have my number and are texting, or people that I run into that never even brought up Sac State before. I played golf the other day, and the general manager of the golf course, and just everybody's starting to know. And we had over 17,000 fans at our last game, and people are tuning in on TV. I had a guy from Marysville, Yuba City saying, "Where are you?" I just turned it on TV, and I had to text him that we were on the radio. I don't, I'm going to have fun talking to Troy Taylor, interviewing him, because you and Danny interview him every week. It's just unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish. I know he's a great coach. I know Chris Richardson must be a heck of an offensive line coach, and Andy Thompson's a great defensive coordinator. But I looked back at the final drive, for example, and watched Jackson Slater and Brandon Weldon, the two guards, pull to the left perfectly and pick off their blocks. And Pierre Williams maintained his block for a long time. And Marshall Martin came in motion on the first play that was a 30-yard gain. He hit the block perfectly, and obviously Scadaboo blows up whoever he blocks. The way that the team is working in concert so perfectly, how they're coached to do that, and individually how they're inspired to be so excited about blocking is what's exciting to me.
Yeah, and you're right. The attention to detail, the fact that they stay with it, the fact that they've been tested the last 2 weeks. They easily could have 2 losses on their resume here, but instead, Steve, they're 8-0, historically great. And you mentioned the crowds. I know, I'll say it, and you and I have done this all the games together. I've never seen this team, this school, this fan base as energized as what they are seeing right now, ever.
Never. And it's fantastic. And to know that we have the Causeway coming up, we're always iffy on whether we root for Davis or not, since they're our rival. But now we have to root for them because we want the Causeway to be just an epic, exciting game. And if we're getting 17,000 fans for Idaho, imagine how it's going to be at the stadium for the Causeway Classic. You can fit over 25,000, 26,000 people in there if you take the tarps off some of the seats. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's been so much fun for us to do. And this weekend, unfortunately, for a rare time, you and I will not be together. That's going to be on my end. I'm going to be attending my younger brother's wedding. It's going to be awesome in Chicago. I'm in the wedding. Family's all going. It's going to be great. But I'm going to be listening to you and to Dave Lewis, who's filling in, and Danny Sullivan and Danny Pinto this weekend at Weber. So, we're usually together at these games, but what do you expect now? What might be the toughest one, Steve? I mean, they just went through Montana to Idaho, and here comes Weber next on the schedule. This is just a brutal run for the Hornets.
It is, and this is, hopefully the Portland State game is easier. They need one game that's easy, because the last 2 have been come from behind victories in the fourth quarter. Now, the Weber State game, and I got to tell everybody, Jason is such a diehard with Sacramento State football. He misses his Kings broadcast for Sacramento State football. Don't want to get you in trouble, but there's a priority. And we've talked several times this week. I know you hate missing it. The crazy thing is the Hornets have won 21 of their last 22 Big Sky games, and that sounds absolutely impossible. And the last game that they lost, I'm the guy who sloughs off a bit. The last time the Hornets lost, I was in Florence, Italy, listening in the middle of the night to you call the game. That was their only Big Sky loss under Troy Taylor to Weber State. So this game, Jason, is the tough one because it's on the road at Weber State, where they've only won one time in their history.
Yeah, and it's Weber. That's the only team Troy hasn't defeated. The Hornets it was one of those games, and we talked about it in our broadcast, where kind of in the past 2+ year run, they've done great things and gotten attention, and then maybe that home game where they got the attention, they didn't have their best performance. And Montana was going that way, and then they found a way to win. Last week was kind of reversed. They were playing great, and then a couple of mistakes, and credit Idaho for coming back and making that more than a chance for the Hornets to lose. And then, Steve, that kind of fast forwards us to the playoffs, and of the trio of me, you, and Danny that's always calling these games, Danny Sullivan's always the one that kind of keeps us from talking about the playoffs. But now at 8-0, this team is going. I mean, they could lose the last 3. We don't want them to. They will be in the playoffs. What's the next step? I don't know what this team is missing in the playoffs, because they're really good, but they don't have a playoff win. That feels like that needs to be the next check in the checkbox that they got to hit.
Definitely. And winning the game against Montana on national television was them winning under that kind of pressure, and they started poorly in that game. And coming back in this game, I think, in my opinion, in our history, when the Hornets were better than the Aggies certain years, they would try and return the punt before they caught it, and it would bounce off the chest. I won't name the player. They would try and get the extra yardage by the receiver, and he'd fumble the football. They'd try too hard to make a big hit on the quarterback, and they'd get a personal foul. They would press. I think in both of those first two playoff games, one was in a terrible rainstorm, and our opponent had experience in bad weather, and the Hornets didn't. But both of the games that they lost that were big time that they should have won, where they were a top 4 seed, I think they pressed a little bit. I think this team finally, when they get to that first playoff game, is going to play relaxed like they're the better team.
And in the 25 years we've done this, you and I don't know how many times would talk about that thought of a playoff game. Could you imagine a playoff? Now our concern is that they can't win in a playoff game. Like, they're getting, ranked high. They're number 2. They'll getting home matchups. It's crazy how much this has changed, how quickly over the last couple of years.
It is. The expectations are so much higher. And let me just say something about Danny Sullivan, our sideline reporter. This is a podcast. You and I aren't on the phone right now, and he listens to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I are both going to be in big trouble for even discussing the playoffs, because it doesn't matter who we're playing. Danny will only talk about the next game that's ahead of us. When we're driving to the game, you and I go, well, next week we play Weber, or the next week we do this. And Danny's all, we have to win today.
Yes. I think it's because he gets the time on the sidelines. He's got coach speak down. Like, Danny gets all the attention from the coaches. You and I are locked up in our booth, and he's locked in like the coaches are.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He's transferred to that mentality. And so I know when he listens to this podcast, number one, he's going to say Steve talks too much, and now he's nodding. He's nodding right now. But number two, he's going to say, you guys don't get ahead of yourselves.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I think these are all we all know each other too well. These are all very accurate statements. So just for you personally on this level, I mean, we do this. We would love the job if they were 0-11, and we've done that, and then 1-10, and been around great people. That's really, it is about the relationships. But just for you, Steve, how much fun is this for you?
Well, I'm really lucky. I don't know what it is, but I'm really taking it in, because obviously to have a chance to win 3 Big Sky championships in a row, and even if they don't get that this year because there's other undefeated, 9-4, 9-3, currently 8-0. I want to enjoy the ride. I'm still going to look back at this and say, how the heck did that happen? I go to bed at night after these last 2 wins and try and rethink in my mind, how did that happen? What happened? And then even this morning, I was watching the final drive and watching the blocking of the offensive line. I'd replay the plays rather than watch the amazing corkscrew spin for the touchdown that O'Hara had, or watch how amazing Scadaboo is. I was watching the offensive linemen and the tight ends all execute their blocks. So I'm taking it in where I'm watching it over and over and just trying to knock it into my mind, because this is truly incredible to win 21 out of the last 22 conference games in a row.
Yeah. Before we go, I was thinking about that as you said that. And we've seen so many things, and we started our run started with Charles Roberts, and I was still relatively new to this and thinking, oh, this is pretty standard. No, he was unreal. 1 of 1, 200 yards a week and 409. That's one of our great memories of all time. But Scadaboo is not Charles Roberts, but he also feels like 1 of 1, Steve. I don't know that I've seen a player at a lot of levels quite like him. What do you think of what Scadaboo is doing?
Well, number one, if we weigh like a certain amount, or we have a certain amount of strength for how big we are, he's double that. Because when you watch him on replays, whether he has the ball or whether he's blocking, when he hits somebody that's the same size as him, they fly backward like he has twice as much force. So I don't know what Scadaboo's made out of, but I've never seen a player that's as explosive as he is at his size.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. He's been putting on a show each and every week. We've had fun with it. I wish you and Danny and Dave no stress broadcast as far as the equipment goes, and certainly I'll be listening. I'm saddened that I'm missing it, but it's a huge occasion for our family and my brother. And see if they can keep this thing going because I know we're all having fun. So have a great call this weekend in Weber.
Oh, thank you very much, Jason. And the key to victory is losing the coin toss. The Hornets are 17-0 when they lose the coin toss.
That's all they have to do. They figured it out. Everyone's doing X's and O's. It's just lose the coin toss. That's it.
All right. Well, someday I want to interview you because I'm sure that's what the audience would like to hear someday, where somebody's asking you the questions.
Well, this is fun. I know I enjoy it. Steve, thank you. And again, have a great call this weekend.
All right. Give my best to your brother.
Well, and as you heard there in my conversation with Steve, yes, I've not missed many games in my Hornet history, and family calls. It's going to be a wonderful wedding to go to my brother's wedding in Chicago. It's going to be awesome family time, but I can tell you what I'm going to be doing on Saturday for bulk of that day, listening to Dave Lewis will be on the call this week with Steve McElroy, with Danny Sullivan, with Danny Pinto, that whole crew. Number 2, Sacramento State. Number 5, Weber State. It's going to be awesome. So I look forward to hearing that broadcast. And I've already got plans to watch it on the flight back home on Monday. But I'll be out. It's going to be tough to be away from Hornet football, but it's going to be super exciting to be a part of a family event with my younger brother getting married this weekend in Chicago. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So with that said, we've heard from Steve. I also told you we got a special guest as well in Killian Rosko, member of that Hornet defense. And here was my conversation with Killian. All right, so we're catching up with Killian Rosko, a veteran of the Hornet program. Let's go back, Killian. Take us to how you landed at Sac State. Why was this the right fit for you?
Really small town. I'm from really small town, really small high school. So I would say it's not too much of a recruited area. So I just went to camps. I went to this camp. I went to a few San Jose State camps. I got a lot of my exposure not through play, but through going to camps, because that was like the only way to get your name out if you're from a town where there's like 4,000 or 5,000 people. Wow. So I just went to camps, and this is with the old Sacramento State staff. They liked me. They picked me up. I signed here. I had a few other offers, but Sac State had a really good criminal justice program, and going the criminal justice route. So I was like, all right, sounds good. Signed here, and the rest is history.
Which coach kind of got their eyes on you here? I know it's different staff, but who brought you in at that time?
At the time, the old offensive line coach, Paul Wolf, was the one who found me. And then when I went to the camp here, the old D-line coach, Will Clemens, took an interest. And then, just recruiting process, and here I am.
So you've been through a lot with this program, you personally. I mean, that's, I remember you played a lot as a freshman. There's been injuries. There's a COVID year. Mm-hmm. Here you are now on the number 2 ranked team. I mean, what a different coaching staff, too. Just what's the journey been like for you?
I wish I could say that it was, like I'm shocked or I'm like super amazed to be here, but I'm really not. Even back in the days when I was young getting here, I always knew this team had something special. I always knew it. This is Sacramento. Mm-hmm. This is Sacramento. This is literally the capital of California. There's no way that we shouldn't be rolling through other teams. There's no way. Mm-hmm. There's no way. And I feel like with the new staff coming in, the new staff, bringing in a lot of Sacramento guys and bringing that value to Sac State, and that, when you're looking outside in at programs, some programs have that, that feeling of, I want to be a part of that. I feel like that now Sacramento State is developing that, and I feel like, we're starting to be a program that people want to be a part of, and that's fantastic. That's key to winning.
Yeah. So how do you think you did it? How did you guys build this? Because there were some lean years, some good years, but now there's a great years. What do you put your finger on as the difference into why it's now an undefeated season, 2 Big Sky championships, playoff appearances? This thing is rolling right now. What in your words, why is it working?
I would say it's because of the overall team mindset. I remember, 2017, 2018, when we had a big week, when we had a big team to play, you could tell that, it's not that people were nervous, but everyone was taking it a little bit differently. Everyone was like, "Oh, we got so and so this week. We got to lock it in this week. This is a big week." Whereas this week, it's just another game. Mm-hmm. It's just another game. It's just a different team with different skill sets that we have to prepare for. There's no hype up of playing a number 1 team, and there's no looking down on playing a bottom ranked team. Mm-hmm. Every single team is met with the same preparation process, not progress. I apologize. Every single team is met with the same process. We carry out our plans and practices the exact same every week, and the reactions to set games, it's consistent, and that's probably what it would be, is consistency.
And is that coming to fruition maybe the last 2 weeks? Because your guys, seems like the DNA is to get ahead of teams, and then they just can't catch you, whether it's your defense, offense, special teams, building this nice lead. Well, you've had to work for it the last 2 weeks ago with Montana. Then it was shaky last week against Idaho, but you guys found a way again, kind of that inner strength, confidence, preparing for. Is that kind of what's happened the last couple of weeks?
The last couple of weeks, I would say we don't listen too much to media talk, if that makes sense. So, when people were making a huge deal out of us, we're the only team to not tail or not be behind or anything like that, we were just like, okay. So, there's going to be a time where we're going to have to come from behind, and that's fine. It's not like, once you put us out of position that we're going to be uncomfortable or we're not going to play well. It's almost a calming sort of effect that it has on the team when you know that every team you play is going to bring their A game and going to bring their best, because you just know that you have to play to a standard and to a level in order to get with these guys. And that level has to be the same every single week.
You got another one of those this week. Weber, really talented team, but to your point, if they were number one, if they're number 121, kind of same approach?
Yeah, same approach. Same approach. We stay consistent with it. They have things they do very well, and we have things that we do very well. So we just want to put ourselves in the best opportunity to give us the best chance to win. We're going to treat them just the same as we treat any other team. There's no rankings don't really matter to us. Our own rankings don't really matter to us. I couldn't even tell you what we are in the polls right now. I saw what we were 2 or 3 weeks ago. Maybe we're in the same spot. I don't know. I don't know. And not too many other guys know either. We just play football.
It's a good perspective. I know Coach Taylor has that too. I'm marveled by it, and maybe that might be something different for when you guys get to the playoffs, because I know that's been something that's missed, kind of a missing piece, but it seems like this mindset and approach seems to be pretty healthy for you guys.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. As for playoffs go, it's just, playoffs are one of those things that, we don't make a big deal out of anything at all. And then when we get to these, these high stakes areas, we don't make a big deal out of it. And it's a good thing, but, at the same time, I don't know. I feel like, at least me personally, I feel like there's just, that we're just missing one thing that just brings it all together and just culminates all of our playing and all of our preparation and everything. I don't know what it is. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I feel like we have it this year.
That's awesome to hear it. You guys got Weber State this week. Killian, I'm thinking about your career here. What are your personal takeaways? What are you going to take with you when you're done and reflecting on your Hornet career? Any individual moments that stand out to you?
Individual moments.
Because I will say this, just for me, calling your games for 25 years for Sac State, one of my favorite moments personally was the sack that you had at Montana to ice the game. That one I love personally, but I'm curious about.
I loved it too, but if you look at the way I see it, and this is and I believe this is the entire team's mindset. When I look at that sack I got, I also look at the inside pressure that my interior guys got. I look at the opposite side of Josiah Erickson rushing and getting a good outside rush on the quarterback and causing him to step up in the pocket. So I don't look at my sack as that's my sack. I sacked him. I stopped it. No, the entire D-line came together, and Josiah put me in a great position for that quarterback to step up and me to sack him. And, when it comes to personal achievements, personal achievements are great, but, whenever you look at someone's personal achievements, you also got to look at the people around them. Ash and Jake, they're doing fantastic. But pay attention to our O-line, too. They're doing fantastic, too. It's a bunch of pieces of a puzzle. And even though I believe that I've had a pretty good career here so far at Sac State, it wouldn't be anything if I didn't have those guys inside me. Just well said.
Yeah, it's well said there. I'm thinking about your defense, too, and Andy Thompson. So animated, creative. Describe him as kind of a defensive coordinator and coach.
I love him. I love him. He's Yeah, I played for a lot of defenses. I've never played for a defense that was so chaotic yet so controlled at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And his coaching style, yes, he's very animated, but, you know, he's animated he's animated in a way that conveys that sense of urgency that he wants us to have. We have to play fast. We have to swarm to the ball. Like, you know, as soon as we make a tackle, as soon as we get a stop, we get back up and get lined up because it's another play. Like, you know, let's go. You know, don't stand here like, yeah, you know, celebrate with your teammates and everything like that. But, like, the big jumping, hooping and hollering, celebrating is for the sideline. Like, you know, dap your teammate up out there and line back up. We got more football to play. Yeah. Like, you know, so his coaching style, you know, when I'm even in practice, I don't know if you've come out or anything like that, but, you know, hear him just yelling. You're not yelling at people. It's just like, you know, yelling the coverages, yelling everything. Like, he's yelling every single part of whether it be the scout offense or whether it be our good on good period. He's yelling everything, and we're just like, oh, man. Yeah. All right, let's get this rolling.
I mean, it's a treat to watch you guys defensively, too, because I got to imagine in camp going against your offense has made you guys better defensively.
Oh, yeah. Without doubt. I mean, when you look at the teams with really good offenses, they typically have a solid defense to back it up. And, you know, going against, you know, Taylor's offense and going against these pieces that he set up on the board, you know, it's not fantastic all the time. It's not always fun because, you know, I'll get a down block and I'm like, where the hell's the ball? I see 6 people that just took off running in different directions. Like, what's going on here? So our defense as a whole, I would say, has benefited greatly from having our offense go against every single period. And our scout team. Yeah. Our scout team guys are not bad at all. Like, you know, there's the age-old college football idea that, you know, scout team players are like these you know, sacks of potatoes that you could just beat up. Ours aren't. Ours aren't. At any given moment, one of our scout team guys can be pulled up and not only are expected to, but can play. They can play. Yeah. Like, I don't feel like there's huge amounts of drop-off within the depth of the offense. Like, every single one of those guys on that side of the ball can play.
Well, that was kind of called on, was it 2 weeks ago? Nagata doesn't play. Deaway gets targeting, he's out. You get banged up a little bit. Cooper gets hurt. And, you know, Riley Hernandez, I'm sure they probably would, and maybe still can redshirt, but go in and make a difference.
Yeah. I remember talking to him beforehand too, and, you know, Riley's a hard worker. He's really, really hard worker. I love that young dude. And, you know, I was telling him, I was like, yeah, man, you never know. Yeah. You never know what's going to happen. Right. My first ever, like, college game was the first game of my freshman season. Like, I didn't redshirt as a true freshman. I started my first ever game against an FBS school it was Idaho. So, you know, it's kind of cool when Idaho was still FBS. And it's not like I earned the starting spot or anything like that. The guy in front of me was injured. So, you know, I had to step up. You know, I just had to step up. So I was talking to Riley before the game, and I said, hey, man, you know your stuff. And you never know. Yeah. You never know. It's just college football. Your time can come at any time. You could be a third, fourth, fifth stringer. And shit happens. Yeah. You know, pardon my language, but, you know, that's what happens. Yeah. That's what happens. And he was ready for it.
You got to be ready. I'm curious, too, on being here so long, family, friends, you know, students on campus. Now we're seeing 10,000, 15,000, 16,000 at the games. Just are you more people talking about it on campus, getting more attention? I mean, what's that like on campus?
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually seen, like, not seen, but I've had like 3 or 4 of my classmates, like, you know, hey, you play football? What number are you? And I'll tell them my number, and they're like, are you a quarterback? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm a DN. Yeah, I know. It's okay, guys. I play defense. But no, there's an element of, you know, there's an element of like community, I feel, starting to develop. And it's something in the past that, like, you know, I felt like we tried to do, like, you know, with like students and student athletes, but, like, you know, I feel like COVID is also a part of that. You know, sure. Before COVID, you know, people were coming in, getting their stuff done, and leaving. Like, you know, but after COVID, I feel like because people were locked up for so much, like, you know, it's not that they're trying to make up for lost time, but I feel like that, people socially now have like a new respect for like social gatherings, because humans are social beings. We want to be around each other. And, I feel like, what better way to, go out and get that experience and go to a college football game. Yeah. And on top of that, a college football game for your college, for a team that's doing well. Like, all the factors are there. All the pieces are lined up. Like, just go and enjoy yourself now.
Yeah. Hopefully for you, there's many more games left this year. But what's left for you after this season? What do you want to do? What do you see yourself doing in the future?
So after the season, get a job. Get a job and just start working a little bit. I've college football, there's a lot of demands, and you don't get to be a normal, regular person. You always have some sort of training. You always have some sort of regimen. You always have some sort of schedule. And the time that you have off, it's not too much. Yeah. So,
but you're done with the game. I mean, would you try playing or coaching or giving back or training, any of that?
As far as like coaching and everything goes, I'm still in Sacramento. If I were to coach, it would be back in my hometown in Sonora. But I don't see myself really going back there too often enough and consistently enough to be able to coach. So I'd probably take a break from football. Mm-hmm. Football's been in my life for 16 years, give or take, 16 or 17. I don't know. I haven't done the math in a while, but I'd take some time off. Use my degree. I got a degree in criminal justice, so Sacramento, there's plenty of opportunities for it. I was thinking Sac County Sheriff, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I know football though prepared you for a lot of whatever the next thing, so it's exciting. I know you'll succeed, and I hope you have a great rest of your season.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Killian. Thanks to him. Thanks to Steve McElroy. We're going to wrap things up with a look ahead to this Weber matchup. Weber State is a great football team. If you look at what Weber State has done this year, it's very impressive. Very similar things that Sacramento State has done as far as winning, playing up. They had a dominant performance this year when they played up, and this has just been a good football team for several years. Really strong defensively. I would say it's the best defense the Hornets have faced, so that's going to be one of the best offenses versus one of the best defenses. Always shows up as just a headliner. You got number 2 versus number 5. But you look overall at what Weber State has done this year. They're going to come in 7-1, 4-0 at home. Tough place to play. A game that, when they played down, they beat Western Oregon easy to open up the year 41-5. Went to Logan, Utah to play Utah State, much like the Hornets and the Mountain West went to Colorado State and won convincingly. Well, Weber State did that early on as well, beating Utah State 35-7. So they've played up with a 28-point win. Beat Utah Tech, a similar opponent to the Hornets, 44-14. Beat UC Davis. That was in Davis, 17-12. Beat Eastern Washington, another common opponent with the Hornets, 45-21. Beat Portland State, who the Hornets will face in a week, on the road, 42-7. Had a brutal day in Bozeman, but nearly won. They had 4 safeties given up. They gave up 4 safeties with 4 bad snaps and lost 43-38. Nearly came back to win that game. And last week they beat Montana 24-21. They will finish out with very winnable games against Idaho State and Northern Arizona. So the balance here of what this game means, there's a lot of people that do this for a living as far as projections for the postseason and what it could mean. If Sacramento State could win Saturday and win their last 2, there's a lot of people that believe if they were 11-0 based on schedule, based on the Big Sky, they think that the Hornets would be ranked number 1, the number 1 seed. Forget the polls. I know they're number 2 in one poll and number 3. It's when the committees get together, do a fine-tooth comb through this and evaluate all the metrics. A lot of people who do this for a living think the Hornets would be number 1. Now, that's not a factor going into Saturday. They need to win. They need to find a way to do it. Same thing can be said for Weber State. They only have the 1 loss. If they get this win, they would likely be a higher seeded team. They likely would end 10-1 and, could force a lot of teams to have to go through Weber in the postseason. So it's a swing game for a lot of things in rankings in the Big Sky and historic value of what the Hornets have done. They've only won at Weber once, and this is the only team in conference that Troy Taylor has not been able to defeat. They faced him a couple years ago at Hornet Stadium, lost that game. And in fact, that's their last Big Sky conference loss. So much on the table, so much to look forward to. And the other thing, and again, recording this midweek, looking at weather, because that's something we've been tracking all week long, what it could look like in Ogden, and it's fluctuated from pretty nasty to acceptable. The latest 10-day forecast, and we're just a couple days out from that, has Saturday with rain at the moment, about a 75% chance of rain. I will say earlier in the week it was rain and snow. Doesn't look at the moment that it's going to be cold enough, but that can change because it's snow on Friday. Looks like snow on Sunday with rain on Saturday. So weather could be a factor. Hornets haven't played in a lot of those kind of situations. Certainly this group hasn't, so we will see how that will all play out. I encourage you all, though, to keep telling everybody else about this podcast. I do appreciate the feedback. If you want to send me more ideas or more things you'd like to hear, I do appreciate that. You can reach me on Twitter at JasonRoss1140, or if you see me at a game or somewhere, find some way to get in touch with me. I would love it to get more info and more feedback on how you think the podcast is going. But that's it for us. My thanks to Steve McElroy. My thanks to Killian Rosko. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week to recap Weber State and look ahead to Portland State on another edition of the Sacramento State Football Stingers Up podcast. Stingers Up!